American folklore, Richard Dawson argues, I quote, folklore is the hidden, submerged culture lying in the shadow of official civilization about which historians write. Schools and churches, legislature and courts, books and concerts represent the institutions of civilization, but surrounding them are other cultural systems that directly govern the idea, beliefs and behavior of the world people. The subterranean or oral expression that permeate the less literate societies. However, it must be pointed out that folklore is also defined and antithetical of culture in the sense of that the former is static. Therefore, according to this understanding, culture produced by the mainstream keep on changing according to their needs. So it is termed as dynamic, whereas tribal folklore, all the moves from generation to generation, has been thought to be essentially unchanging. As a result, interestingly, in India, Adivasis are understood to have produced folklore, whereas advanced societies are said to have produced culture, thus denying the culture to the Adivasis. Folklore is not just historical but a contemporaneous. Thus, it is important to emphasize the contemporaneous of folklore even when it deals with the cultures and communities who are supposedly living outside the realm of modernity. There are many things that deal with the everyday issues of tribals that folklore engages with. That is why insisting that folklore is purely traditional is problematic. One can find more examples of this kind of argument, and even books that deal with the folklore are structured based on such a premise. Laurie Charles Wimbley, for example, in his book Folklore in English and Scottish Popular Ballads, published in 1928, included mainly medieval literature from chronicles, from classical sources and from tradition, as he believed that they contained in them the different cultural strata of what he called the primitive thought. Extending this line of thinking, folklore is essentially history of the primitive communities. Attempts were made to establish that folklore actually is the source of all human history. In his book, Oral Tradition as History, Janmohan Sinha argues that oral tradition or folklore is being hailed as the chronicles of human history by providing evidence to the origin of people and the subsequent migration to their final destinations. It is precisely this kind of broad but limited understanding of folklore that came for a criticism from those who focused on contemporary characters of folklore. Wendy Singer, in her book Creating Histories, Oral Narratives and the Politics of History Making, says that oral narratives explained and historicized events by placing them into the context of the lives of their listeners. These narratives created histories, justified political action and linked political issues to the social context of the rural environment, as well as staggered opportunities to tell and retell rural stories. These are represented resources of history. I end quote. Talking about this issue, Wetson notes that emphasis on tradition merely served to maintain the 19th century understanding of folklore as preserved relic, which implies that folklore was a vestigial element in culture and it was a key to reveal the past, but of little or no significance for modern society. Some Marxist thinkers seem to have overcome these limitations of looking at folklore merely history. Y.M. Sokolow, whose study is influenced by the Marxist principles, argued that folklore, apart from being an echo of the past, is also the vigorous voice of the present. However, the problem with the Marxist conception was that folklore is appropriate to suit the Marxist narrative of the class conflict by linking it with the working class life. In other words, folklore was seen as controlled expression of proletarian ideals. Thus, Sokolow argued that Marx, Lenin and Stalin demonstrated their sympathies for folk production. Lenin was supposed to have declared that folklore must be considered from socio-political point of view and as an aid to understand hopes and expectations of working masses. Such framework analysis which appropriates folklore in service of a universalist ideal, I would argue, would not be productive to analyze Bhat narratives as it erases the local or more immediate battles that this particular art form is engaged in. Another important issue that I would like to raise is that the study of folklore has been dominated by the non-tribal scholars who have failed to understand the Adivasis, as they often tend to romanticize folklore as well as the Adivasi rather than understanding their later material relationship with the nature, their responses to modernity and their struggle for survival. For instance, folklore has been an important source of education of tribals. The transmission of not only the cultural traditions, values and histories of tribals from the one generation to the next takes place through the folklore, but also the entire knowledge that the tribal possess, whether it is about the hills and forests, plants and forest produces, animals and land agriculture, seasons and rain. Here, the issue that arises out of this interaction with the non-tribal population and a great deal of other things that things get transmitted through the folklore. This aspect of folklore has been recognized and documented to some extent by the anthropologists, particularly in the study of primitive societies. However, what is interesting to note is only certain kind of Adivasi knowledge which falls within the counter of folklore is considered authentic by the scholars. Another significant issue is the dubbing of folklore as a literal tradition as opposed to civilization. Robert Redfield, an American anthropologist who influenced the study of folklore in India, says, in a civilization there is a great tradition which reflects more and there is a little tradition of a largely unreflective many. That is to say that what is exists in Sanskrit, such as the Vedic texts, are traditional sacrificial rituals. The epics, the mythologies of the divinities like Vishnu and Shiva are usually considered the great traditions, whereas the oral literature of tribals and other marginal communities with their own local gods and sacrifices and so on, rendered in regional languages and dialects, is dismissed as little traditions. However, for Adivasis such as the Lambadas, folk tales such as Saki and Goruboli Lambadas plays a major role. These tales are available in the forms of songs in the Lambada tribes. These songs are recited by the Bhats and also by the people in the community. They narrate tales on every major social occasion. I'll just play this song here so that you'll get awake. They are narrating on the Prithviraj Chauhan and Amar Singh Rathod's context, how they resist to these Mughals in the Rajasthan region. As I mentioned before, Lambada Bhats inhabit many parts of Andhra Pradesh. The language is called Gorbole. It does not have a script. There are no documents and recorded historical evidence to ascertain the history and the origin of the Lambadas. I believe that Bhat narratives are an important source not only to record the history of the Lambadas community, but also to analyze how Lambadas have been negotiating with the changing socio-political powers over time. I already gave you a sketchy idea of history of Lambadas, that they had been trading community and eventually how they become agriculture laborer and so on. After 1820s, the Lambadas changed their lifestyle and created new social identities for themselves. A new cultural movement came into existence in their community, and this was initiated by a Lambada saint, Seva Bhaya. He inculcated new values such as vegetarianism, cleanliness, non-violence, and abstention from liquor. He had a great influence on the Lambadas, and they gradually started moving towards his teaching. Bhukya says, Seva Bhaya had profound impact on the community. His movement not only united the community for the first time into a single force, but it also created a new consciousness and paved the way for a new cultural assertion. In this movement, the spiritual culture of the Lambadas was articulated and re-articulated in order to unite and mobilize the community. The Lambadas' new consciousness and genealogy is available in the form of oral culture. The Lambadas have very rich and strong oral tradition, and every Tanda had a Bhat who preserved these traditions. At the beginning of the 19th century, John Briggs says that among their habits, I quote, among their habits is none which is more remarkable and comes in a strong confirmation of their own accounts, and this the fact of each horde of any size having a bard who recounts in material the actions of their forefathers and is a principal actor in all festivals. He plays on a kind of guitar, and the air are some of them are very pretty. The bards are common even at the present time among the people of Mawar, and both facts confirm the tradition of the Banjara histories. This retention of their habits and native tongue for several centuries is perhaps one of the most remarkable instances of the kind of performed in the history. When we consider that they have no written records, and unless among them there is no intercourse in the language. I end the quote. Thus each Lambada Tanda had a Bhat who preserved their history in an oral form from Karman days. This practice still exists today in the Tandas. I interviewed Ramjhol Bhat, the sole survivor of the tradition in our community, in our area. I have also recorded some of his performance. Just now you have seen that. The whole nature of the narration, voice and the gesture are important for the tale to bring liveliness. The inbuilt narrative skills of the Bhats bring liveliness to these tales. These tales help exploring different forms of historical imagination in the past, and these Lambada Bhat tales may be useful in furthering the vision of the alternative history. There have been attempts by the mainstream historians to appropriate Lambadas into the Hindu religion. However, when we observe the Lambadas, we realize that none of the major Hindu gods and goddesses are part of their life. I hope many Lambadas are here. If they can, tell me something about that, they can pray. They used to pray the Hindu gods in their homes. I can challenge. From childhood days, I am experiencing, where I lived. None of the Lambadas, prayed none of these Hindu gods. Recently, they started, praying these Hindu gods. If you look at this, the other video, did you close this video? Which one is that? That. You want to close this one? You close this one. This is a major festival of the Lambadas. Now slowly what is happening is they are bringing the Ganesha in and started praying for it. Of my till my degree, I never experienced praying Ganeshas at my place. But slowly, recent past, after 2000 onwards, people started bringing Ganeshas in Tandas. And forgot there is a major festival. If you look at the saplings of those, it never harms the environment, it never affects any natural. They just bring those weeds and they grow those wheat saplings 9 days. After the 9th day, they throw it in the ponds. So that is the cultural festival of the Lambadas. But people like me, what happened now, we are coming to universities and donating lot of monies to buy the Ganesh idols in Tandas to celebrate 9 days. So that is how the Hindu influence is coming in. They put those saplings in the middle and they dance around that saplings. And if you look at the beginning of this, none of the women folks are allowed to take away those saplings. The women bring thrice, they pour the water to these saplings in a day, morning, afternoon, in the evening. They go to nearby ponds and they get the water and pour it in those baskets. 9 days continuously they celebrate this, and it's majorly for the women folks who are unmarried, they celebrate this. And this is where actually the love among those women, the men also, unmarried men also follow, and they choose whom they like and they get married. In June, July. Beginning of the rainy season. There have been attempts by the mainstream historians to appropriate Lambadas into the Hindu religion. However, when we observe the Lambadas, we realize that none of the major Hindu gods and goddesses are part of their life. Nor do they have access to Hindu temples and scriptures. Lambadas are not idol worshippers. This is evident from Ramjol's words. The very interesting small stanza he narrates. Surta mati re Dada lego surtane. Randwa rego surtana lego. Randwa rego surtan lego. Surta matire man kya sai. Pata lego surta matire saso vego de. He says, do not pray to idols, pray to human beings. They might help you in some other ways. This shows that the Bhat seemed to put a great deal of emphasis on human rather than Hindu gods and Hindu religious practices. Absence of stone images and idols can be noticed in the above song, which I narrated. There are no temples or images in the Lambada Tandas because Lambada culture has not developed any stone images. Ramjal Bhat asks, what is the point of praying to those images? Why should we run after the images? Further he says, why worship these idols? Living beings are more important. The emphasis here is on avoidance of images of worship. Lambadas do not have any temple culture. Since they live in the fringes of the villages, they keep talking about other Hindu gods. Therefore, assimilation of the dominant Hindu religious aspect is practiced by the Lambadas. But their assertion appears in the narrative form. However, the above song shows the resistance against the dominant religion which may not be perceived or owned up by the community. There is one more song how they stigmatize these Lambadas as criminals or dacoits. I'll just give the gist of that song. It's also there in the audio, but it takes long time to understand that. During Raju Nayak's marriage, his uncle Raju Nayak went to collect some money which lent to others. People who borrowed money from Raju Nayak promised to return at the time of harvest. So Raju Nayak went to collect the money. Raju Nayak took 4 people along with him. While coming back, the sun sets, so they thought of staying at Umalgad village. Umalgad village is near Gurampet somewhere. They spent their night in Umalgad village and got up early in the morning. They saw Madhu Patel going. They are happy seeing him and wished him, saying, Ram Ram Patel. He saw them and said, "Oh, you are from Raju Nayak Tanda." They say, "Yes, Patelji." Yes, Patel says, "You bastards have come for dacoity. Oh, Raju Nayak has sent you to get some money for his wedding. You are dacoits." So saying, Madhu Patel calls the police and gets them all arrested. The same day, in the same village, people take some 10,000 or some rupees from the Banyas. So they blame these communities because they were there on the same day. So the Patel is during that time he is the responsible person of the village to call police or do panchayats. So why does he say that? Very interesting. He says, "You are dacoits." So saying, Madhu Patel calls the police and gets them all arrested. While going towards the police station, Raju Nayak asks Madhu Patel that if you get all of us arrested, then who will go to our Tanda and inform our Nayak? Madhu Patel says, "Raju Nayak, you go and get your Nayak." Raju Nayak goes to his Tanda and informs the incident which happened with Madhu Patel. Then Nayak of the Tanda remembers the incident that Madhu Patel had asked for a cow, but he refused to give. Raju Nayak goes to police station and asks his fellow community people whether they had done dacoity. They say no. Then Raju Nayak tries to convince the police, but it goes in vain. No, because he did not give the cow. So he wants to take revenge on these people. So he wants to fix them in some way by blaming that you have taken this money. As Bhangya says, even if the lower communities claim the upper status, that would not change the mindsets of the upper caste. It is not only the Indian upper caste who look down upon the Lambadas, but also the colonial state considered these people as criminal tribes. Although the Nizam managed to suppress the remnant traces of dacoits, the criminal stigma attached to the community not only hampered their social life, but also prevented them from earning a decent living. Their caste bore the very identity of crime, which followed them like their shadows. Even after the declaration of around 6 lakh tribal people as non-criminals in Hyderabad area after India's independence, these people were looked down upon. The Habitual Offenders Act of 1954 was enacted, which was implemented in order to monitor their advances, lifestyles, locomotions and other facts. Thus, in no proper term, they considered to be free from the stigma. The stigma of being criminal haunted the Lambadas for a long time after independence. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, as first Law Minister of India, revoked the Criminal Tribes Act in 1952. The notified criminal communities were denotified. It was replaced with the Habitual Offenders Act, which targeted the individuals, not the communities. Though the communities were denotified, the stigma still continues. As an antithesis to this, the Lambadas began to rearticulate their own identity. Till date, the identity of the Lambadas remains as a major issue in post-colonial India. What is interesting here is that we find references to these kings in the narratives of the Barots of northern Gujarat as well as the Bhats of the southern India. There might be some variations in the narration and plot, but the characters and themes are essentially the same. Thus, Ramzal Bhat claims that it was the Lambadas, the rulers in the medieval period, who heroically fought against the imperialism of Mughals. Such a claim challenges the nationalist story that the kingdom that existed in the medieval India were ruled by Hindu kings and that they were plundered by Muslim invaders. Thus, it exposes the deceptive strategies of the hegemonic nationalist narratives which appropriate everything into their Hindu religious fold. I thank you for listening. Other songs, very interesting songs, but I couldn't explain them. They also compose on how these modern means of transports exploited them. When they introduced these railways, many of these army people were dependent on lambadas. But when they introduced this railway and modern buses and transports, they lost their livelihood. They also composed on these trains. Very nicely they scold the train, from where you have come, how you have destroyed our life, and in every place you constructed the houses to collect the money. When we don't give, you hang us. When you don't take the tickets and travel in trains, they charge you more money and put you in, behind the bars. So all this comes in these narratives. So once again, I thank the Cultural Studies Department for giving me this wonderful opportunity to narrate or to explain my research work to these research scholars. At least suggestions.
Where is this word Bhat? Where does it come from? The word Bhat, which also means the story. What I was curious about is that the way you are continuously criticizing firstly, there is that another type of anti-enlightenment idea of folk and folklore, and then but you are also retaining the word. So why not use just oral narrative? And why take the term folklore at all when you are so critical?
Actually, the main aim was this presentation. This presentation is to criticize the folklore, but I used that term. I could have used oral narratives, but throughout my thesis, I use only oral narratives. Here and there, I also used oral narratives here, but to give a bit focus on folklore, I use the term actually. In the beginning to criticize that, and later how the tribals looked at the folklore. To distinguish that point, I just use that. But I really prefer to use only oral narratives. But I was little, I was expecting that people may ask questions that what do you mean by oral narratives and folklore? Narratives is a longer way of narrating. These narratives, they continuously narrate 4 hours. So if I say narratives, then that's different. Folklore is short form of singing 3-4 lines. Again going back to the other song. That's a folklore actually. But here in my thesis I used only oral narratives. But this word had come from the Rajasthan basically because the rulers, they used to have these bhats with them. For example, if I want to go to HCU, think that though I am a Raju king, so I should send a bhat to explain what are the deeds I have done to the people and what is my personality. First, this Bhat goes to the HCU and he tells that this person wrote this book. This is got published by the Oxford Cambridge. He has to narrate so that they know me. That is how they used Bhats actually.
of the one about modern narratives or what is that, folklore, most of the time it will present oriented, right? So there will be always certain kind of new forms will be always adopted and accommodated and recontextualized. So in that context, when one of your concern was about the Ganesha thing in this thing, and as a person inside the community, it may not be a problem, but as a person outside the community, as seeing as an academician, and seeing that there is a new elements of Ganesha in the community. So it can be part and parcel of, maybe I don't know whether it's a politically kind of things, but no, there is a larger element that most of the time any kinds of folklore will be adopted many things from the West. Maybe sometimes the most dominant forms of the West. So one way I was thinking that you are actually thinking there is some kind of purest form of the narratives which is existed before and now it is something changing and something like that.
This I brought Ganesha here to tell you that how the religious modes changes. Not that the folklore obviously changes from one place to another when you travel actually, because these are all nomads. When you travel from one place to other place, the songs usually gets changed and they bring in the essence of the life, how they faced in this village and how they are facing in the next village and the situations and circumstances. But I brought Ganesha here is to tell you that how the people are becoming more and more religious. Not that the folklore and folk songs are changing, they obviously change, but concept of the religion is changing, and the new concept is coming into is tribal culture, tribal lives, which really affects not only the tribes, affects the environment outside, affect the nature, and
so there is no resistance against within the community.
Mohan and other people are doing a lot of resistance here, but it only in the universities. It is difficult to change the mindsets of the educated people than the people who are staying back their home. They don't accept this easily. They will resist, and they are resisting it. But here in the mainstream, we are adopting it. People like me, seeing you that you are praying Lord Balaji, then I will also come and to retain reclaim that I am also worshipper of the Balaji or something like that. So it's more in educated people than the people who are staying back the villages.
Something it was like that changing nature of the nomadic community itself, from the pastoral life to a settled kind of things. So then you have to actually appropriate many things from the you settle yourself as a community or something. So is there when you are thinking about the broader category of the community, like from the nomadic life to a settler community, then can be part and parcel of such kind of structure of the community.
So I just want to say the whole idea, like you are talking about Sevala, so the whole idea about vegetarianism in Nalanda, and you are talking actually makes united the Lambada community after this 1820s, Sevala. But it actually united the community, it has brought out something different from what our guys were thinking. That is one. And another thing is the whole, that was my observation. And another thing is that when we are talking about this whole Ganesha, see, Ganesha is like this Teej festival which we consider the most, what we call, very cultural kind of festival. It does not have any religious kind of stuff. And during this,
if you watch the entire thing, you can see it doesn't have any images, it doesn't have any idols there. They just draw a line with a white atta, jawar ka atta, and they sacrifice the goat there, and after that they untie the baskets.
yeah, so basically this does not have any religious our practices are. This starts in like one day, like 9, like actually happens 9 days, and then end of the day, what sir was telling. In other gods also, we have different kinds of goddesses. Where in Sevala is not a god, but because to like protect our community as same, most of the people from outside are like let's say in my village last year my Talla the Vinayak brought first time, and my mother and my father first one who resisted, and my mother she did not give the chanda, but whereas the one of the Reddy fellow he donated, like he contributed, he gave a lot of money, and so when my mother did not give money, the whole village came against us, and they tried to do many things, and after that we have been facing a lot of problems. But somehow they also understood why they are replacing Vinayaka, and now this year they did not do this Vinayaka. So there is something that this whole idea of changing the Hindu-wise kind of culture, like when BJP and Narendra Modi and all these people are coming after like 2000. This also made a major role within the Hindu, because nobody is there now. Even like we don't have Ramjol Bhat or anyone to talk now. What there is, my grandfather used to tell that okay, we were like very revolutionary people. We used to do a lot of things. That time there was fine, but now it's completely hold of the whole main religious people. That is the major thing happening.
The first observation which you made, the Seva Bhayas, vegetarianism and cleanliness. During that time, actually, what happened? Many of the new acts are coming. They are forced to leave the forest and come to the mainstream, and they are leading the same kind of life where they used to live. So that time actually they used to pay. The state asked them to pay for each cow, like 25 annas, 50 annas, if they go to other areas to graze. And these people are not they have that habit of moving from one place to other place. So they were really in a bad shape, and they used to have non-veg. So they are looking for those kind of things. At that time, actually, that was not that as like Gandhians, vegetarianism and all. It is like to resist or to sustain in this mainstream. He introduced this kind of cleanliness and vegetarianism, not having any kind of notions in his mind. That's where actually people have united, and they survived, in fact. Otherwise, are you able to hear me?
I was also thinking, because they started this whole vegetarianism, and the whole Lambada community now looks back to Sevala and say that we started the whole Rajput and Kshatriya kind of identity, and now they, like every community now they started worshipping, like they forgot all these god and goddess. They started doing worshipping Vinayaka, all kinds of temples outside water. So every day we have one fasting. Like earlier they used to not have this kind of stuff, and they used to eat like anything, all non-veg, even including beef and everything. But now they can't eat chicken.
Beef issue is something different actually. There are different types of lambadas within the lambadas. Mathuras, Mangnyas. So these Mathuras who live in Adilabad, they actually converted from the Muslim background. So they eat beef. Actually, there is a story, a very interesting story Ramjol tells. Earlier, all the people used to have beef. So one day they are cooking beef. Unfortunately, what happened? One piece falls out. So that person who is cooking that beef took that piece again and put it in that same bowl. So definitely it became, there are stones, why did you put in that? And they ran away from there. Because all of them are grazing these cows and cattle. From that day onwards, they stopped eating beef. That's what the Ramjol says. And I have to, really, engage with those kind of questions furthermore. Because how far it is true, when was it happened? Are there any kind of evidences with the song forms? Actually, this recent project which I got from ICSSR, I have to look for these kind of people in entire Telangana region and what kind of songs they sing. There might be some other singers like him also. So I have to find out from them also what is the essence of this. So what he says is this bringing in Vinayaka is mostly from the elite group. They have a hand in it, and most of them are having the Hinduized kind of ideology.
There is no research being done on this. For example, Hyderabad, what is actually happening during Ganesha festival, right? I think there is a lot of imagination, speculation in that, who stands out, who stands not, or who is corrupting, who is appropriating or internalizing this. Because if you look at each basti, this time particularly, this year it is said that the number of Ganeshas that are installed in Hyderabad is double from the last year. So there is a massive increase. And who is actually doing this is an interesting thing to study. In each basti, whoever is the leader and whoever is connected to whichever party, so you can actually see the flags and colors of that party. So there is Congress, TDP, BJP, all parties actively promoting this. And there is a lot of money also involved in this. So how it gets into a particular community or people is something that needs to be studied rather than imagining.
The very interesting thing I would like to say, when the politicians come to their place, some people like me, they say that this year if you donate guidance idol, then we will vote for you. From Kannada. Somebody who are interested in sports, they will demand sports kits. Right? Now give us a cricket kit, or give us a guidance idol, or give us some volleyball kit. Now these are the things actually they were ready to give. What is? They need votes. So all the parties are donating. As you said, Congress, TDP, we cannot simply blame the BJP, but everybody is involved in it. Funny, any questions? Any suggestions, please? Community, we have these storytellers, Chindu, Burrakatha, all and for Lambadas also these are the people who narrate the genealogy and the stories for them. The interesting thing of the Bhat is they compose songs on the Nayaks, but in other communities we cannot see. They keep on narrate the historical events. But if I die, if Ramjol knows me, he composes song on me. He starts singing on me. From when he has seen, what are the things I have done, and he starts. And on the night or on the anniversary of the death, they come and narrate, right? My place, my home. Coming back to the Telugu stories. This Amar Singh Rathod, Prithviraj Chauhan and other heroic leaders, legends had come from the Rajasthan actually. So yeah, I have seen it in a website. Exactly what Ramjul Bhat is narrating is there in the website. I was so shocked because he doesn't even read, he doesn't even write, but he is carrying those 14th, 15th century songs in his memory. And you know, I don't know what connections we have. Still, we have to examine that.
Sir, there's some similarity between this Lombardy folk, Lombada, how is it pronounced in English? Lombada, right? This folk culture and the Marathi folk culture, because in Maharashtra also we see a lot of programs where two people with symbols will be narrating about a particular king like Shivaji or about like some Tukaram. So is there some relation between the heart of the Lombardy culture and Marathi culture?
Yeah, very easy. Marathi Lombardis, recently we went to attend a program in Nanded. They also invited some of these Bhats. But I didn't have much time to talk to them. But in maybe a couple of days I have to go and talk to them. But the dialects are different little bit, but the language is same. And the stories which they are narrating, because the Shivaji is associated with Maharashtra region, so they sing on that. But here in Lambada community, we didn't find any narratives on Shivaji.
Arts, they come from which section of the Lombardas?
Like this is a big story. Within the Lambadas, they are untouchable sections.